Hello everyone, welcome to the Mercury Virtual. Hope you are doing good. Today I am going to continue with your same module, that is object oriented programming, and the same chapter, that is chapter number 6, constructors and the destructors. In the last class we have started this chapter and we have covered two or three topics of this chapter and then moved to the practical approach in the last class, doing some basic programs like addition, subtraction, division, that is the basic programs of a C++. So I'm going to continue the theory session for till break, and after the break I'm taking your practical session, that is the turbo C++ session, that is the practical part of the C++. So first of all takes the theoretical section. So let's take a quick review what we have covered in the last class and then move to the today's topic, right? So in the last class we have started with chapter number 6, that is the constructors and the destructor. That is what is a constructor and what is a destructor, and how constructor and destructors are used in a regular flow, and how it is used in a various formalities, various modes that is used, right? So that is used for a operator overloading, that is used for operator return overloading, that is done by the so what is constructors? So whenever the object can be created, they are automatically creates their value, they are automatically assigned their value, that is known as the constructor or destructor, right? So that is a constructor. So in the last class we have studied about the constructor. So constructor is nothing but a value. When the objects are created, they are automatically assigned some value, that is known as the constructors, right? So constructor is a special member function whose task is to initialize the object of its class. That is, the main role is to initialize the object of its class. That is initializing the object, that is how to initialize, how to create the object of a class. That is, it is done automatically, not by the manual way, but it is done automatically. It is special because its name is same as the class name. That is, the name of the constructor is same as of the that is used in the class name. The constructor is invoked whenever an object of its associated class is created. So whenever an object is created, that is invoked with the help of a constructor, with the help of a object, that is known as constructor. It is called constructor because it constructs the value of data member of the class. So why it is known as constructor? Because it constructs the values, it constructs the data members of the class. Construct means changes or modify the data members of the class. That's why it is known as the constructor, right? So constructor is declared. So this is the declaration part, how constructors are declared and how it is used, or how we can declare the constructor part. So why it is known as constructor? Because it constructs, it modifies the values of the data members of the class. That's why it is known as constructor. And this is the syntax how it is defined and how it is declared. That is a constructor. This is the constructor, that is a class with a constructor. So first of all, the name of the class is also integer, and the constructor that is declared is also named as a integer. This is the integer. Then there is a int m or n, then public integer void. So the constructor name is also integer and the argument that is used is the void. Then there is a closing curly braces and there is a semicolon. Then this is the constructor defined, that is how to define the constructor. Then integer, scope resolution operator, integer void. Then there are two values that is assigned, that is m is equals to 0 and n is equals to 0, right? So when a class contains a constructor like the one defined above, it is guaranteed that an object created by the class will be initialized automatically. So whenever it is created, or whenever an object or whenever a class contains the constructor, it is guaranteed that an object can be created by the class or whenever any object that is created by the class will be occupied or will be guaranteed by taking the class itself. Int1 is declared as an object whenever an object is declared, whenever an object is created of a class, it is created with an object that is used. So this is object int1, that is creation, not only creates the int1 of the type integer, but also initializes its data member that is used with the class object that is used for the constructor define. So if a normal member function is defined for a zero initialization, we would need to invoke this function for each of the objects separately. So this is the way how the constructor will be used. The default constructor for the class A is A, then scope resolution, and there is a parenthesis. If no constructor is defined, then the compiler supplies a default constructor. Therefore, a statement involves the default constructor of the compiler to create the object A. The constructor function has some special characteristics. That is, this function, that is the constructor, has some special characteristics or the features. What are the features that is used? So first one of the feature of the constructor is they should be declared in the public section. So it's mandatory, or it's very important to declare the function or declare the constructor as in a public section only, right? Then they are invoked automatically when the objects are created. So there is no foundation, or there is no target that we have to create the constructor. No, simply they are invoked automatically, or simply the constructors are invoked, or instructors are, or constructors are invoked automatically whenever the objects are created, and they do not have a return type, return value, not even the void. So there is no return type, there is no void value of the constructor, and they cannot be inherited through a derived class. That is, whenever we declare the constructor, that cannot be inherited with the other class. That is, for example, class B is created and the class D is the derived class for the class B. In such a case, whenever the class D is used, so that is not inherit the properties of a constructor that is defined by the class B. Like any C++ functions, they can have default arguments. That like any at the C++ function, they have a, or they can have a default arguments. Then constructors cannot be virtual. That is, we cannot make the constructor be virtual. We cannot refer to their addresses. An object with the constructor cannot be used as a member of a union. Then next is parameterized constructor. That is, whenever a constructor is formed with a default constructor, so whenever a constructor that is made that initializes the data member of all the objects to 0, that is a parameterized constructor. So whenever we use the constructor, that is used by passing the argument to the constructor function when the objects are created, so that are known as parameterized constructor. That means whenever any constructor that can take the argument, that can take the values, that are known as the parameterized constructor. This is the example that is used. So the constructor integer may be modified to take the argument as shown below. This is the parameterized constructor. How do I know this is parameterized constructor? Because the values or the data members are assigned, or data members are initialized, or the arguments are passed, like int x, int y. So two arguments are passed, one is int x and one is the int y. So that's why it is known as the parameterized constructor. And this is the definition of the constructor that is used. X is or the x value is assigned to the m, and the y value is assigned to the n. So when the constructor has been parameterized, the object declaration statement such as this one, this is integer int1, may not work. We must pass the initial values as argument to the constructor function when an object is declared. So how the object is declared, or how the we can pass the argument, so how we can use the various initial values as an argument, by using two methods. What are the two methods? By calling the constructor explicitly, or by calling the constructor implicitly. So there are two methods. Either we can call the constructor in an explicit way, that is the external way, or either we can call the constructor in an implicit way, or in an implicit manner. The following declaration illustrates the first method. That is, this is the explicit way how to explicit the call the constructor function. This is integer int1 equals to integer 0, 100. So there are two values that is used, that is the 0 and the 100. This statement creates an integer object int1. So this is int1 and passes the value 0 and 100 to it. So this is the explicit way, that is pass the value of int1, or pass the value of 0 and 100 to the int1. The second is implemented, that is the implicit constructor is implemented like this one. There is an integer int 1 0 100. This method, sometimes known as the shortened method, it's very often as it's shorter, look better and easy to implement. Remember, when the constructor is parameterized, we must provide appropriate argument for the constructor. That is, there is a proper argument that is given in the constructor, otherwise the error will come, because the constructor we use is of proper argument, proper data type, and that means the number and the type. That is, a number means how many argument, how many variables are used, and the type means the data type, which data type is used. So it must be same. That is, if we pass the 4 values, so there will be a 4 values that is given in a constructor. If there are 3 values, that is given as a 3 values only, right? This is the example that we have discussed, a class with the constructor. This is the same, that is a hash include iostream, then namespace std, then there is a class integer, that is the class integer is used, and there are 2 data members, one is the m, one is the n, right? And there are public declaration, there is a member function that is used, that is the integer that contains 2 arguments, and 2 are of int type, that is a int comma int. So this must pass the 2 values, or we should pass either in an explicit way or either in an implicit way only 2 values. That is the main concern. Then there is a void display, then there is a void, then cout m equals to this one m value, n equals to this one, that is n value. So that is, display is used by getting the values of from the m and the n, and there is a closing curly braces and there is a semicolon, right? Then this is the definition of the constructor, that is the how constructors are defined. This is the constructor declared, how it is declared. Now it is how it is defined. That is the integer, then scope resolution operator, integer. That is this is the class name, this is the constructor name. Then int x, int y. In this we are only declaring the data type, but in the definition it is given as the int x and the int y. Then x is assigned to the m and the y is assigned to the n. Then there is a int main that is used. Then there is a 2 objects that is created, that is integer int 1, then 0 and the 100, then integer into, that is the integer 2575. First is the method of the implicit method, then second one is the explicit method. That is, whenever we use the equals to sign, that is the explicit method, and whenever we use only parenthesis not equals to sign, that is the implicit method. Then object 1 is created, display is used, object 2 is created, display is used. This is the definition, how we are using the, or what is the main points, or what are the legal points, what are the illegal points. Now next is multiple constructors in a class. So till now we have covered only one constructor in a class. Now there are multiple constructors, or there are n number of constructors in a class. This is the today's topic, that is today's scenario, today's session. So what is multiple constructor? That is more than one constructor at the in a same class. So far we have used 2 kinds of constructors. What are the 2 kinds? One is the integer, that is a no argument, that is a default constructor. One is the parameterized constructor that takes n number of argument of any number or any number of argument. For example, 2 arguments. Like, so there are first is no argument, second is 2 argument, that is the int and the int. In the first case, the constructor itself supplies the data values and no values are passed by the calling program. In the second case, the function call passes the appropriate values from the main function, that is a function call, that is the second one, that is the int and the int, that passes the appropriate values from the main function. C++ permits us to use these constructors in the same class. For example, we could define a class as follows. That is, this default constructor and the parameterized constructor is used in only one class only. That is also a provision that is provided by the C++. So there is a class integer. So there is a class that there is an integer. Then there is a curly braces, opening curly braces, and there are 2 variables that is used. One is the m and one is the n. So these are the 2 variables that is of integer type. Then there is a public, that is a public declaration. Then there is an integer. Then there is a parenthesis, that is a that is the integer that contains two values, that is the first constructor is used, that is m is assigned to the 0, n is assigned to the 0, that is constructor 1. Then there is an integer int a comma int b, that is this is the parameterized constructor that is used. Then m equals to a, n equals to b, that is a is assigned to the m and b is assigned to the n. Then there is an integer ampersand I, this is the third constructor that is used, that is the integer ampersand I, then uses the dot operator for accessing the values, and this is known as copy constructor, that is I am discussing right now after this program. So this is a copy constructor, so whenever a ampersand is used, that means a copy constructor, that is an integer ampersand I. And there are two values that is used, that is I dot m, that is assigns the value to the m, and then I dot n, that assigns the value to the n, that is a accessing the values of m with the help of I, accessing the values of n with the help of I, that is used, that is stored in the m and the n, right? Then there is a closing curly braces and the class will be closed. So this is the class integer. So this declares three constructors for integer object. So object is same, that is the integer, the name of the constructor is same, but we declare three constructor with different different types. One is a default constructor, one is a parameterized constructor, one is the copy constructor. The first receive no argument, the second receive two argument, third receive one integer object as an argument. For example, the declaration I1 automatically invokes the first constructor and sets the value of n and m of I1 to the 0. So why it is opting the only invoking the first constructor? Because this is simply one value is given, there are no two value, and the one value is only applied to the default constructor. This is integer I2 2040, that will invoke the second constructor. Why? Because there are two values and there are two parts of declaration, that is the a and the b. So this is 20 and the 40, that will call the second constructor, which will initialize the data members m and n of I2 to 20 and the 40. Finally, the statement integer I3 I2 will invoke the third constructor, which copies the value of I2 into I3. As I said, the values of I2 is applied to the I3, or will copy the values of I2 into the I3. So it would invoke the third constructor which copies the value of I2 into the I3. In other words, it sets the value of every data member of I3 to the value of corresponding data members of I2. As mentioned earlier, such a constructor is known as copy constructor. So such type of constructor in which the elements of one object is copied to the another object, that is known as the copy constructor. And we learned in chapter number 4 that the process of sharing the same name but more than two functions is known as function overloading. Similarly, when more than one constructor or the function is defined in the class, we can say that constructor is overloading. So in this scenario, there are three constructors used in a class, so this is known as the constructor overloading. This is an example of constructor overloading, that is the n number of or more than one number of argument, number of constructor that is used in the same program, same class. So that is the overloaded constructors. So there is a hash include iostream.h. Then there is a using namespace std. Then there is a class complex. So one class will be created that is of complex type. Then there are two values that is used, that is a float type, that is a x and the y. Then there is a public one, then complex, that is constructor takes no argument, that is a default constructor. Then complex float a, that is x equals to y equals to a, that is a constructor with only one argument, that is the a, that is assigns the value of x and y to the a. Then constructor with two argument, that is construct or complex float a real, float imaginary. So there are two parts, one is a real and one is imaginary part, that is given the value of real to the x and the imaginary to the y. Now created the friend function of the complex function or the complex part, that is the friend complex sum complex complex. Then friend void show complex, and there is a closing curly braces and there is a semicolon. Right. Now this is the definition of the friend function, that is a sum function. So this is used as a complex sum, complex C1, complex C2. So these are the two variables of different types, data type, that is a C1 and the C2. Right. Then created the object of the class, that is a C3. So created one object of the class, that is the object class name is a complex. So created the object as a C3. Now using the dot operator, accessing the values or fetch the values of x and y. So one is C3 dot x, that is equals to C1 dot x plus C1 dot y, or C2 dot x, not y, C2 dot x. Then C3 dot y equals to C1 dot y plus C2 dot y, that is adding the values of C1 and the C2 and pass to the C3, and then access the element either x and either y. In the same way, C1 dot y plus C2 dot y, that is assigned to the C3 dot y, then returns the value of x and y in the form of C3, that is return C3. This is the definition of the friend function. Now this is the definition of the another friend function, that is the show. Simply shows the value in the form of I and j complex number, that is c dot j x, then there is a double quotes, then there is a j, then there is a c dot y. Then this is the int main, that is the main part. Then there is a closing curly braces, opening curly braces. Then there is a complex a 2.7 3.5. So in the int main, various objects are defined, various initializations are made. That is the object, the name of the object is a, and there are two values that is passed. One is 2.7, one is 3.5. So from this constructor will automatically invoke. Why? Because there are two float values that is given, that is a real and the imaginary. Then complex b 1.6, so that is the 1.6, that is only the one value that is given in the this one, that is the 1.6, that is the only one argument. Then there is a complex c that is defined, that is a constructor with no arguments. Then c equals to sum, that is taking the value of or taking the variable as a c, then that is equals to sum a comma b, that is adding the values of a and b and passes the value of or passes the output to the c, that is the sum ab, then it passes the output to the c value or the c variable, right, that is c equals to sum a comma b. Then c out a equals to, that is assign the value or giving the value, that is a equals to. So this is used as a equals to, that is available in the double quotes. Then there is a show a, that is a show a is the function that is used to display the function. So this is the function that is used, that is displaying the values of a. Then c out b equals to show b, that is displaying the value of b. Then c out c, that is displaying the value, that is a show c, it will display the values. So this sum is a friend, then show is also a friend, right. Then this is the one way how it is used. Another way of initializing the values, that is the second method. So from this we are invoking the objects, we are invoking the various parts of the different function, that is a complex function, that is c equals to sum a comma b, that is two values are given, that is a comma b. Then c out a equals to, that is passing the values. So this is another method is defining the complex variable as a PQR, that is the complex PQR, that is defined PQ and R. Simply uses p equals to complex 2.5 3.9, that is initializes the p, passing the values of or assigning the values of two float into the p, that is constructor takes two arguments. In the same way, constructor take two argument, that is assigned to the q, then adding the values of p and q and passes the sum into the r, that is taking the values and passes the sum, adding the values and then pass the sum to the r. Then there is a cout slash n, that is moving to the next line. Then cout p equals to show p, that is display the function of the show that will display the complex values. In the same way, cout q, that is display or showing the values of the complex number. Then cout r, that is showing the values of the function that is a complex function. There is a return 0. So this is the output. First of all, a equals to 2.7 plus j 3.5, that is a Roman number or the complex number that is given. Then there is a b, then there is a c. In the same way, p equals to this one, q equals to this one, and r equals to this one, right? Note that there are three constructors in the class example. The first constructor, which takes no argument, is used to create objects which are not initialized. That is, it is only used to create object with no argument. That is creation of the object, that is not initialized. The second, which takes only one argument, that is used to create the object and initializes them. And third one, so in first one, that is used to create the object, that is not initialized. Second one, that is also used to create object, that is also initialized. And the third one, which takes two argument and is used to create object and initializes them to specific values. Note that the second method of initializing values looks better. Why second method? Because there are only two values, that is there is only one argument that is passed, that is used to create the object and initializes them. Now let us add the first constructor again. This is the empty constructor, that is a no argument. So it contains the empty body and does not do anything. So it does not do anything and it contains the empty, means the blank body. Then we have stated that this is used to create an object without any initial value. So there is no initial value, there is no argument that is used, simply used to create the object. Remember, we have defined objects in the earlier example without using such a constructor. Why do we need this constructor now? So as pointed out earlier, C++ compiler has an implicit constructor which creates object even though it was not defined in the class. This works fine as long as we do not use any constructor in the class. However, when we define a constructor, we must also define the do nothing implicit constructor. So this is same as the implicit constructor or the do nothing constructor, because there are no argument that is passed and there is no statement that is available within the curly braces. So this is known as the no argument constructor or the default constructor. So this constructor will not do anything and is defined just to satisfy the compiler. So this is just used to satisfy the compiler, nothing else. So that is known as the how to use the multiple constructors like no argument constructor, copy constructor in the same class in the same program. Now next is constructor with default argument. That is how to use the constructor with default argument, or how to take the constructors, or how to use the constructor with the default argument. That is how to use with the default values. So it is possible to define constructor with default argument. For example, the constructor complex can be declared as follows. So this is the constructor that is used with the default argument, there is no change, there is no value that is given, but only uses the constructor with the default argument. So this is complex, that is a constructor, and there are two parts. One is the float real and one is the imaginary equals to 0. That is assigning the imaginary equals to 0 or assign the value of 0 to the imaginary. The default value of the argument imaginary is 0. Therefore the statement, that is a complex C50, assigns the value of 50 to the real value or real variable. So this 5.0 is assigned to the real variable, not the float variable, and 0.0 to the imaginary, because we have already given the imaginary part as a 0, but we are assigning only one value, we are passing only one value, that is 5.0, so that must be gone to the real part, because automatically imaginary value takes the 0 value, that is 0.0, because it is in the float type. So that assigns the value 5.2 to the real variable and 0.0 to the imaginary variable. However, the statement complex to C2.0 3.0, that is The constructor that can take two arguments, that is a 2.0 and 3.0, that is a float type, assigns the value of 2.0 to the real. So 2.0 is assigned to the real part and 3.0 is assigned to the imaginary part. The actual parameter, when specified, overrides the default values. As pointed out earlier, the missing argument must be the trailing ones. It is possible to differentiate the default constructor and the default argument constructor by using the int equals to 0. There is ambiguity, that is whether to use a simple default constructor or the constructor with the default or constructor with the default arguments, that is the argument constructors. Then next is for 6.6 is dynamic initialization of object, that is how to dynamically allocate the object, that is the dynamically allocation of the object. So this says class object can be initialized dynamically too. So it is also possible to dynamically allocate the class objects. So this says class object can be initialized dynamically too. That is to say, the initial value of an object may be provided during runtime. That is the initial object of any object that is provided or must be provided during the runtime. One advantage of dynamic initialization is that we can provide initialization formats using overloaded constructors. That is, there are multiple formats that is used for the initialization format that is used as a overloaded constructors. This provides the flexibility of using different formats of data at the runtime depending upon the scenarios. It depends on the scenarios which constructor to use and which destructor to use, that is known as overloaded constructor. So this is just like the function overloading, that is the same function name but with different argument list. In the same way, same constructor name is used but with different argument list, with no argument list, depend on the scenario. This is just the example of the banks that takes a long fixed rate deposit that is used. So this is the dynamic initialization of the constructor, that is how dynamically the constructor will be initialized in an object. So there is a hash include iostream.h. So this is first the header file that is used, that is the iostream. Then there is a using namespace standard. Then there is a class. What is the class name? That is a fixed deposit. The name of the class is fixed deposit. Then in this there are principal amount, that is a long, int p amount, then integer years, float rate, then float r value, that is a return value of amount. Then there is a public, that is defining the data or member functions. Then fixed deposit, that takes, or this is known as the constructor with no argument, that is known as the default constructors. Then fixed deposit, long, int p, int y, float r equals to 0.12, that is known as the constructor with different arguments. Then fixed deposit, long, int p, int y, int r. So there are three arguments, that is known as the constructor with three arguments. Right. Then there is a void display, void. So that is also used to display the value. So this is just a simple not the constructor, but the above three, that is a fixed deposit, are known as the constructors. Why there is a name fixed deposit, or how do I know this is the constructor? Because the class name is also fixed deposit and then this name is also fixed deposit. So only two values have the same name, that is the class name and the constructor. And this is closed, that is the class will be closed. Then there is a fixed deposit, then there is a scope resolution operator, then fixed deposit, long, int p, int y, float r. So there are three values that is used, that is the int p, int r and the float r. Then using the amount, that is a p to underscore amount equals to p, that is assigning the p amount equals to p, that is whatever the value of p, that is assigned to the p amount, whatever the value of y, that is assigned to the years, whatever the value of r, that is assigned to the rate. Now comparing the values or assigning the values of p amount, that is the principal amount equals to or principal amount r value equals to p amount, that is the principal amount that is stored in the r value. And this is the for loop that is used, that is I equals to 1, I is less than equals to y, I plus plus. Then r value equals to r value into 1.0 plus r. Then there is a closing curly braces, that is this is the definition of the one of the constructor that is used. Then fixed deposit, then there is a fixed deposit, then loan, int p, int y, int r. So there are three parts. One is the p, one is the I, one is the y, one is the r. Then there is the same, the p is assigned to the p amount, y is assigned to the years, r is assigned to the rate. Then p amount is assigned to the r value. Simply uses the for loop, it will continue till y value. Then there is a I plus plus, and the initialization is I equals to 1. Then there is a r value that is equals to r value into, that is multiplied by 1.0 float r divided by 100. This is how the r value will be created, that is a return value will be created. Then there is a display function that is also defined. So this is the display function. First of all, break the one line, then principal amount equals to, principal amount is p amount. So whatever the p amount that is available, that is a principal amount. Then there is a return value that is used. So whatever the return value that is used, whatever the value that is returned by the r value, that is known as the return value. Now there is a int main function. Now here comes the int main function. So till now we have defined the class, we have declared the member function, we have declared the constructor, we have defined the constructor within the same class. Then next is int main, that is the starting of the main, and there are variable object declaration, that is known as the fd1, fd2 and fd3. So the class name is fixed deposit. So we have created three objects, that is fd1, fd2 and fd3. Then there is a log int p, that is the principal amount, that is the int p. Then there is a int y, float r, and the int r, that is the investment period, then the years, then interest rate in decimal form, and the interest rate in percentage form. Then it is said, see out, enter the amount, period, interest rate in percentage, that is enter the amount, enter the period, and the interest rate that is given in the percentage. Then C in, that is getting the values of p, y and r. Then FDI equals to, that is the first object, equals to fixed deposit p, y, r. So whenever it is used as a fixed deposit p, y, r, it is certain go to this function, that is a p, y, r. Right. Then next is C out, enter the amount, enter the period, enter the interest rate, that is also in decimal form. So this is in the percentage form, this is in the decimal form. Then C in, that is assigning the values or giving the, or taking the value, read the values of P, Y and R. So this is used as the enter the amount and the period. So the second one is entering the amount and the period, and it is also deposited. It is also used in a P and Y, that is in a simply amount and the period. So this is used, that is the amount and the period. Then C out deposit one, that is FD1 dot display, that is accessing the display function with the use of FD. So sorry. That is accessing the display function with the help of fd1. So it will display the values with the help of the display function. Then fd2 dot display, that is display the values with the help of fd2. Then fd3 dot display, that is display the values from the with the help of fd3. So there are three objects that is used to display the function. So this is like one of the example. Enter the amount, period and interest rate. Enter the amount, period and interest rate. Enter the amount and the period. So whatever the output that is used, deposit 1 equals to principal amount, first of all 10,000. How I do know this is 10,000. Then return value is 164303 by giving the values. How it will calculate the in the same way, deposit 2 also have a principal name, also have a return type. In the same way, deposit 3 also have a principal amount and the return type. So how do it get the return value? This is done by using the formula. This is the return values. How? First of all, the R value, that is equals to the R value into 1.0 plus float R, that is divided by 100. that is given the r value, that is multiplied by 1.0 plus float r, then it is divided by the 100. Right. So this program uses three overloaded constructors. So there are three overloaded constructors that is used. The parameter values to these constructors are provided at the runtime. So whatever the parameter that is passed with the at the time of runtime. The users can provide input in one of the following forms. So user can provide the input in one of the following forms. First is amount, period and interest in decimal form, then amount, period and interest in percentage form, then the amount and the period. So there are three options. One is the decimal form, one is the percentage form, one is the amount and the period. Next note, this since the constructor are overloaded with the appropriate parameter, that is the overloaded constructor, that is more than one constructor with the appropriate parameter, that is the appropriate arguments. If there are three values, that means that can take the three arguments. If there are two values, that can take the two arguments, that is known as the constructor with the two arguments. If there are three values, that is known as the constructor with the three arguments. If there is no value, that is a constructor with no values or the with default argument. This says since the constructors are overloaded with the appropriate customers or appropriate parameters, the one that matches the input value is invoked. So whatever the value that is matched, that is if we are giving the three values, one is a int, one is a float, one is the char, and with the help of object it is carried out the three values, one is a float, one is a int, one is a char. So it can fetch that value because the sequence is, the data type is int, float and the char. So the constructor is automatically invoked while the object is created. So this is an example, that is the second constructor is invoked for the forms 1 and the 3. That is 1 and the 3 means that is whenever the amount, period and interest are given in the decimal form, that is in the float form, and the amount and the period. That is the second constructor, that is the constructor with only two arguments. This is the second constructor, this is the second, right, this is the third one, and this is the first one that has no values. Then cout deposit 1, so that will, or you only use for display the values, display the functions, that is fd1 dot display, fd2 dot display. Note that and the third is invoked for the form 2, that is the form 2 that is used. This is the form 2. In this there is a long int p, int y and the float 0.12. Note that the form 3, the constructor with default argument is used. Since input to the third parameter is missing, it uses the default value for r. So if the parameter is missing, it takes a default value, that is for example r in this case, right. Right. So let's stop over here only. Let's move to the break right now. Then after the break, let's move to the practical approach so that your concepts are clear about the C language, like we have done in the last class, that is in the yesterday's class, right? So let's take a break right now, then moves to the next topic, that moves to the next practical approach after the break. So let's take a break right now. So come back from the break. Now let's start the session again. So we have covered till now how to use the multiple constructors in the same program, how to use a multiple constructor in the same class. So now it's a time to move to the practical approach. So now let's move to the practical approach. In the last class we have covered so many practical approaches, like how to create a or how to add the numbers, how to multiply the numbers, how to divide the numbers, that is the numbers, that is the we have done in the practical approach, right. So let's start the practical approach. So now let's move to this one. That is the first part of the program. That is a simple class program. How to create the object, how to use the classes. This is just an example how to create the class. Now this is the example of the basic program, that is how to use, what is the structure of a C++ program that we have discussed. Then in the next chapter, what are the tokens, enumerator, basic data type. This is also a theory. Now this is the practical part, that is the int main, then derived function name. Then this is the illustration that is given, then reference variable. Now what are the various operators that is used. Now this is the program that shows the scope resolution operator. So I will write this program and showing the practical approach of this program, that is how to execute this program, right? So simply writing this program for you, that is hash include. First of all, that is hash include iostream.h, then hash include conio.h, then there is a int main, or there is a class name that is used, that is a int m equals to 10. Now there is a int, that is m equals to 10, then there is a semicolon, right, that is assigning the value of 10 to the m. Then there is a int main, that is a main will be open, that is the int main, then there is a semicolon, then there is a curly braces. Now it is declared as a local variable, that is int m equals to 20, that is a local variable, and this is a global variable. So if I want to write, I will write as a global variable, so that you will refer that what is a global variable. Right, and this is a local variable. Right, this is the int m equals to 20, right. Then uses two more declaration, that is local to the main. Now there is a int, that is k equals to m, right. Then int m equals to 30, then cout, that is simply use the cout, that is used for printing purpose, that is we are in the inner block. Then there is a backward slash n, then there is a semicolon, right. Then C out prints the value of A and K and M. That is C out K equals to this one, that will print like as it is. Then there is a extraction operator, then K. Then if I want to move to the next line, then simply use the slash n and the this one. Then there is a semicolon. Then again the same line will be used. So if I copy the line and paste the line, that is M equals to, this is M, right? Then this is also closed, this double quotes, the slash n is also in double quotes. Then C out, then there is a scope resolution operator like this one. Then M equals to, then scope resolution operator, then there is a M, then slash n, then there is a semicolon, right? After this there is a semicolon, everything is in semicolon, curly braces, right? Now the curly braces will be closed for this block. Now simply prints that C out, we are in the outer block. Instead of inner there is a outer block, right? Then simply uses K equals to this one, M equals to this one as it is line, then there is a return 0. The spelling of R is wrong, that is VR. Then there is a closing curly braces, then there is a return 0 also. Now if I compile this code, there are one error. What is the error? That is declaration terminated error. There is no semicolon after this one. Now if I compile, there are two errors. Undefined symbol K. So this is not defined as a K. We have not defined over here. That is K. So it must be defined as a K. M equals to 20, M equals to 10, IOStream.h. So this is a global variable, that is 20, the int main, then K equals to M, that is defined as undefined symbol. Then K is assigned to the value that is never used. This is a 20 that is used, that is local to the main. This is a global variable, then there is a int main. So if I define over here, that is K. Now again there are two errors, undefined symbol K. If I defined over here, again undefined symbol K. And if I remove this one, then if I execute this code, there are three errors. That is a multiple declaration for k, so this is not needed. That is, now if I compile this code, again there are two multiple declaration for m, so there is no requirement of the m declaration. So if I'm not using this one, now if I compile this one, there is only one error, undefined symbol k. There is no symbol or there is no point that is used over here, that is a k. This is small k, I think. Now there is again one error, undefined symbol k. This is a small k. I have made 1k. Now there is success, that is there is no error. So this is the way how we remove the program. Now this is done. Now why this output cannot be shown? Because we have not used the get ch over here. If I want to show the output, that is done by the Alt F5. So in the inner block, again the same values, that is the 20, 20 and the 10. In the outer block, again the same value, that is the 20, 20 and the 10. That is 20 values of m, 20 values of k, 120 values of m. That is the 20, 20 and the 10. That is a, whenever we use the scope resolution operator, it will access the global variable. So scope resolution operator is used with the global variable. Right. So this is the program that shows how to use the global variable. So first of all, we have defined iostream.h, then conio.h, then m equals to 10. That is a global variable that can be accessible within the block or outside the block. Then there is a int main, that is starting with the main function. Then m equals to 20, that is assigning the values of 20 to the m. Then assigning the values of m to the k. Now the k contains 20, m contains 20. Then prints the value of k and m. Then simply prints the value of global variable by using the, because now m contains 20, but in a global variable m contains 10. So that means we use the any operator, any one operator that is used for showing the global variable. That operator is known as the scope resolution operator. So this scope resolution operator is used for defining the global variable or for accessing the global variable. That is a scope resolution operator. In the same way, we are in the outer block, the same scenario will apply. Right. This is the program that shows how to use the scope resolution operator. And if I want to compile, then simply uses clr scr function. And for showing the output, there is a get ch function is used. Now if I execute this code, the output will be displayed directly with clearing the screen. That is, the screen will be clear. Right. Now if I change the value to the 40 over here, now let's see what's the output. The output is 20, 20, 40, 20, 20, 40. Alright. This is the way how the scope resolution operator is used. I have to save this file by the name scope. Right. So this is the way how we can write the programs of the scope resolution operators. Now these are the various memory management operators that is not in use right now. Manipulators. Now these are the various functions that is used. That is the function prototype, how to use the function. Let me check any one program that is used to make the functions online. Yeah, this is the inline function. So now let's use this function, that is how to divide the number, how to multiply the numbers, right? This is the example of the inline function. Now let's see. First of all, hash include iostream.h, then hash include conio.h, right? Then uses the inline function, that is any inline function, that is inline float multiply, that is mul, then giving any two float values, that is a float x and the float y, for example. Right. Then simply returns the value, that is the x and the y, that is a x comma y. Right. Then again there is an inline function, one more inline function, that is a multiply divide, that is taken as a double, that is double, that is double, then there is a divide, then again take two arguments, that is a double, that is a double p comma double q, right? Then uses the curly braces, then return p divided by q, then again closing of this one, that is becomes the inline function. Now use the int main, again passing the values of float a equals to 12.45, in the same way float b equals to 3.50, right? Giving two values, then cout use for multiplication, that is used for mul, that is multiply x comma y, or we can say m comma n, that simply passes the value and moves to the next line, that is in double quotes, then there is a semicolon. In the same way cout, then div divide, then a comma b, then again slash n, then there is a return 0 that will be used, that is a return 0, that is a main, then there is a get ch for displaying the output, then there is a closing curly braces. In the same way there is a clear screen that is used. Now if I compile this code, there is one error, that is the declaration terminated incorrectly, because there is no this one. Now if I compile, there are two errors, undefined symbol m, so that is not defined over here, that is undefined symbol m. So in this we have to give only a and b, then a comma b. Now if I compile, there is a warning, two warnings, that is unreachable code, because we have used over here, so get ch is not used over here, that is a get ch. Now if I compile, there is a success. If I execute, this is printed like as it is, that is a 43.57 3.55. Why? Because this will added the values, that is a 12.45 is multiplied by first of all 3.50, that gives the output as a 43.57. In the same way, addition of two numbers like 12.45 plus 3.50, that gives the output as a 3.5555 something. So this is the output that is given for dividing the numbers, right? So this is the program that is, or that shows the inline function. That is a function that is defined over here only, that is defined in one or two class, that is there is no declaration, nothing, but the same at the same time the function is defined, that is known as the inline function. And this is the example of the inline function, how to define the inline function and how to use the inline function by various concepts, by various tools, by various formalities. So there are two values that is assigned in the int main. One is a 12.45, next is a 3.50. Then uses the multiply function, that is a mul function, that is used as an inline function that returns the value by multiplying the two values, that is 12.45 into 3.50. In the same way, the double, that is div for dividing the function, for dividing the values, then div a comma b, that is dividing the two 12.45, that is divided by 3.50, that also gives the value as a something 3.55 something. Right. So this is the program that shows the inline function. Now I have to save this file. Okay, this is also saved. Right. Now this is also done, that is the inline function. Now there is a concept of the class. Now let's start the program of the class, that is how to use the class. Oh, this is also important, that is the function overloading, that will be discussed after the class. So first of all, defining the class and how to use the class. So this is class, just one example of the class, how to declare, how to use, that is a class example. These are the various terms that I have discussed with you. This is the example, that is get data and the put data is used. So let's start some basic example, or yeah, let's start with some basic of the class. So first of all, hash include iostream.h, then hash include connew.h, right, then uses the class item, now there is a int main, or there is a class item that is declared, that is a class item that is used. Then again there is a starting curly braces that is used, and there are two parts, one is the number, one is the cost, that is a int number, and then there is a float cost that is used, then defines the variable, that is this is by default. Now use the declaration part, that is public, that is defined in the public, then use the void, that is a get data, then uses two values, that is a int a comma float b, right? So defines two values, one is the int, one is the float. Then uses one more data, that is a put data, then put data, then there is a void. This is declared as an inline function, this is not void, this is void, that is put data void, then uses curly braces over here, then cout, enter the name or the number is, that is the number will be printed as it is, that is the number is, then there is a number, then there is a semicolon, then it will print like as it is, that is the cost is, that is what is the value or what is the cost, then there is a cost, right? So this will be the information, this will be the definition of the put data. Now the class will be closed. Now the member functions are declared, that is first of all the member functions are void, then there is a item because the class name is item, and there is a scope resolution operator, then there is a get data, then there are two values, that is int a comma float b, right? Then uses this one, that is displaying the value, that is assigning the values of number to a and the cost to b, that is number equals to a, then cost equals to b, then there is a closing of this one, right? Now uses the int main, then uses or created one object, that is the object x, that is a item, object name is x for example, right? The name of the class is item and the object name is also item, then created the object, that is the x, right? Then simply calls the get data function, that is a get data, by passing the two values. For example, I have passed the values as a 200 and 15.50, that is in the float. Then there is a y dot put data, there is one more that is also used, or simply use the x dot put data, then simply uses the parenthesis, then there is a return 0 or there is a get ch, then there is a return 0, then this is the closing of this curly braces. If I compile this code, there is a success, there is no error. If I execute this code, this will print number is 200 and the cost is 15.5. So this will print the values, that is how the number is used and how the cost is used, right? Now if I want to give the clear screen, then uses over here, that is clr, so sorry, not over here but in the int main, that is after declaring this one, because this is the main part, it comes to bottom to the top. Now if I compile, this will print number is 200 and the cost is 15.5. So this is the way how the class will be used, how the different members will be used. Now let's explain. First of all, two header files are introduced, that is the iostream.h and the conio.h. that are the two header files that is used Then there is a class item, that is the name of the class is item, that is a class item. Then there is a int number, that is a number is a variable, cost is the variable, that is the int number and the float cost. Then there is a public, that is a public means the public data is used. Then there is a void get data, that is a get data is the name of the function that is used. So there are two data member, that is private by default because there is no heading, that is a private by default, and there are two member functions, that is a get data and the put data, that is used for displaying the output and taking the values from the user. And in get data there are two values, that is a int a and the float b, and there is a put data for displaying the on the screen. Then simply use cout number is, that is printing the value of number. Then cout the cost is, that is printing the value of cost, that is done by the put data. Then there is a closing of the class and there is a semicolon. Then after closing, this is the definition of the get data, because put data becomes the inline function, and this is the definition of the put data. Simply defines the function within the class only, that is how to represent or how to display the data that is done by the put data. In the same way, how the new data or the how member function will be declared by using the scope resolution operator. This is the return type, that is the void. This is the class name, this is the scope resolution operator, this is the function name. These are the various argument that is passed, that is the int a comma float b. Now assigns the value of number to the or a to the number. So whatever the user inputs the value, that will go into the number, and what are the value that is give by the user, that is in the b, that is also assigned to the cost. The number is taking the value of a and cost is taking the value of b. Now uses the int main, that is the main function, declare the object x. So x is one of the object. Then access the member functions with the help of the object of the class, that is x. So there is a x dot get data, and there are two values, that is 200 and the 15.50, and the put data, that is the blank, that is void, that is not used or that is used with no argument list, that is there are no argument list that is used, that is the put data. Then there is a get ch and the return 0. So one is get data, one is the put data. Get data is used to getting the value or taking the values from the user, and the put data is used for displaying the values on the screen, that is the get data and the put data, right? So when I compile this code, it will simply display the output on the screen, that the number is 200 and the cost is 15.5. If I change over here something else, now for example 50, then there is a 25.8. Then if I compile this code, then it simply gives 50 and the 25.79999. This is the float, so this is the its measure quantity. If I give both the discrete, now if I compile, this will give the 20, 50 and the 25. That is the float value will be taken as the value, that is the cost, right? So this is the way how the class will be used. So this is the example of the class. Now if there is any doubts, any query about any program, then you will ask from me. So I am winding up this class right now, or I will wind up this class right now, because there are 10 minutes left, so there is no hope to do the one more program, because now there are lengthy programs. So we will move this session to the next class, that is tomorrow's class. In the tomorrow's class, we will be starting in the theory, that is a copy constructor, that is how to use the copy constructors, and after theory, that is